But there was so much stuff. So then I fell back on my, the recycling. And the recycling, like I said, man, goes all the way back to when I was 14 or 15 years old. And even when I was an electrician apprentice. Man, when I was an electrician apprentice, I was wiring receps, and you would go up and they'd have tails like this sticking out, on the deals. And everybody that was wiring receps or switches or anything like that would cut these tails off, just drop them on the ground, and then, whoever was sweeping up would just sweep them up, and they'd get swept up into the dustpan and thrown in the trash. Well, man, I put an extra bag on the back, and when I do the cutoffs, man, I just stick them in this bag. Man, and friggin' all the cutoffs that I would see, I'd just walk around, pick up all these cutoffs and stuff and stick them in that bag. And then I would stick them in a 5-gallon bucket. And then when the 5-gallon bucket was full, well, actually, we'd just do it, me and Miss Kitty. We were young. We didn't have no money. We'd take that 5-gallon bucket, and we'd be sitting down, watching TV, and we'd just sit there and strip wire. Strip wire. And I remember, man, a 5-gallon bucket of wire. If I remember, man, we were getting like $70 or something, $50 or $70, which was huge to us, I was making $4.75 as an electrician apprentice at the time. And at the time, she was working at Taco Time. And, who knows, man, the minimum wage was $3.35 then. So, I mean, we were making peanuts, man. I can't even believe that I gave up my time for those wages. Yeah, I remember one time, here we go, jumping back again. But I remember one time we took, and then I was working at Northwest Electrician Apprentice, and I was working there, and we took our paycheck, of course, paid our rent because we were renting this little tiny, it was a travel trailer is what it was, in a little park thing. And, paid our rent and stuff, so we had a place to live. I was driving this old beat up Opel Cadet's what I had. And we took, paid what we had, and then we had this much, which wasn't very much, man. I can't remember, $30 or if that. And we took it and we bought bought our fishing licenses, me and Kitty's fishing licenses, a bag of carrots, and a bag of potatoes. And our plan was to go fishing every night after work. And if we caught fish, we got meat. And if we didn't, we didn't. And that's how it was. Sometimes we just had carrots and potatoes, and sometimes we had carrots, potato, and fish. Man, that was some of the greatest times ever. I actually asked Miss Kitty to marry me on one of those. We were out there with our potatoes and carrots, and asked her to marry me, and went out and got in the water, and down on one knee in the water and all this. Should not tell you that story, but anyway, that flashback. All these things come flashing back to me. So now back to where we were, where I was trying to go. This is probably gonna be a two video mother. Because I'm going on and on. Man, you start talking about it and just all of it. All these themes start coming back. So I don't even know where I was. The tow trucks, after the tow trucks, and scrapping. So, so go forward, So man, I've worked all the jobs. That's what I was trying to get at, man. We've worked, worked for the man, worked the jobs. Did everything that you're doing, a lot of you anyway, that are doing now, and that are always doing the flea markets, and that was my own business, or our own business, and scrapping, So then eBay started, started up, and well, actually, when I broke my foot off, that's right, dude, when I broke my foot off, is when I started doing eBay. And that's how I made money, because I had lots of junk. I didn't even have to go look for it, but I did. But, so I started doing eBay when I was in the wheelchair, and was doing it full-time at that time, and then went back to man, I can't remember what I was doing. Went back, and done some jobs here and there, and even went and drove. Man, drove to New York one time. Got hired just a week-long drive to New York, in a truck, big rig, and then I got hired for a week or so. Excuse me. To drive down to Miami, Florida, and back in a truck. So I was doing that kind of stuff, and then I went and drove car hauler. I guess that was more because to buy that house and everything. I don't remember all that crap. But anyway, so always junking and scrapping, man. It's my baseline. It's what I do. So then we go forward, and then, man, I opened up and then I went back to, actually, when, we bought that fancy house, before we ended up losing it, I went 100% back into junking, and been full-time reseller, junking, flea markets, all that. I was doing flea markets and I was doing eBay at the time. So I started doing those, and I went back full-time into those, was doing that, and scrapping. And then opened up a store, a trading post in Nampa, Idaho. And, man, the trading post, man, the stuff that would come through the doors, man, that I would buy, because it was a buy-sell-trade trading post. And, man, I scored, oh, man, you wouldn't believe the stuff that I would buy was better for that. And then I'd sell that stuff. A lot of that stuff I'd sell on eBay, and get better money for it. But, and the other stuff would go into the store. The problem with the store is I was making good money at the store, but the rent and the trash and the electricity, everything was commercial priced. Man, just to keep the doors open was an insane amount of money, and the trash was an insane amount of money, and electricity, everything. So we did that for a year till my lease was up. And then got out of that, went back to doing, the flea markets and all that. So we were doing 3 or 4 of them a month. And so, still selling on eBay, because once that eBay thing started, and I was just asking Miss Kitty how many years we've been doing eBay, and it's been 28 years or something we've been selling crap on eBay or something like that. Man, it's changed a lot. So then we go forward, man. So go forward, end up buying the creek bottom. So we come in here, man, and the creek bottom took everything. Not that we had a lot of money anyway. But, man, I sold, scrapped out, sold. I ended up leaving thousands of dollars worth of stuff free for the picking. I called people and told them, man, you can go through that stuff, man. I'm done. Because I had to borrow $100 for the last load that I brought onto this property. Man, I got up here and was flat busted, man. I mean, I had my property, and then I had to come up with the next start of the payment, just by the first of the month. So got up here, and within that first month, and I'd already bought my forge, being Kevin D, bought that, my blacksmithing forge, and I set it up out here in Snowbanks. We moved on to this property full time in October. Bought it in July and moved on to it full time in October. Man, I could go into that. You can actually look back on the videos, and I talk about the craziness and stuff when we first bought this. But anyway, I started pounding out knives, and we were already making like railroad spike knives and everything. We were actually still making those when we were down in the flatlands. We'd sell every one we made. I was making them out of horseshoes and wrenches and, any rusty gold that I could find, I'd make knives out of them and sell them, and they sold good at the flea markets and everything like that. So then I started selling them on eBay, and them knives for the first, I don't know how many years I made knives, man, but it paid for half this property easy. that's how I made my payments on this property, was pounding out and making knives. You know, I knew I had to do something, man, because here we are up here. You know, there's one junk shop not too far, but the other ones are all quite a ways. Didn't really have no money for gas. Had lots of junk. Lots of junk. Had stuff, you know, we were selling on eBay. You know, that back then we didn't have like I do now, man, because I have more stuff. I don't even need to go treasure hunting because it's insane now for how much stuff I have. But at that time, so we're talking, you know, I don't know, quite a few years ago. So my knives paid the payments on this place for years. And then I didn't monetize. I was pretty much scared of the monetizing, you know, the videos, the YouTube videos for money and stuff. Old Bob's the one that got me to, you know, I got him to do videos. Old Bob Doing It Cheap. I'm the one that got him to get going on videos. And he's the one that got me, because once I got him going on videos, he's all, well, I'm going to monetize him. I'm all, really? I don't know about that, man. I ain't giving my information out to them people. And then he started telling me, man, I made 3 cents on that video. Oh, I made 8 cents, man. And then he started, man, well, I made $1 on that video. And I'm all, hey, wait a minute here. So then I was all right, man, so what do I got to do? And so I don't know how many years ago that is now, you know. 7, 8, I'd have to actually go back on videos, man. But I didn't monetize my videos. You know, I've been making YouTube videos for, oh, what has it been? 15 years, I think. 15 years or something like that. I don't know. But, and I didn't monetize them for, I don't know, 6 or 7 years, man, because I wasn't giving my bank account numbers to nobody. So then I ended up monetizing, and, you know, now here we are where we're at today. It's not like I'm getting rich on it by no means, you know, make pennies, you know. And then you look at some of the stuff, and they're making all this money in their videos, you know, you're just like, wow, dude, what am I doing wrong? Anyway, but so I ended up monetizing my videos. So now we're finally getting to today. You know? So one of the questions that was asked, you know, a few times, and it's been asked multiple times, you know, over the years, is how I make a living. So as of now, you know, today, how do I make a living? Well, one way I make a living, actually all the ways that I make a living, is on this junk, you know, and people are always making, you know, especially viewers that have never watched these videos, is, I just had one yesterday, man, oh, you're a hoarder, you know, man, a hoarder hoards the stuff, man, hoarders don't sell, man, I sell dang near anything, man, so I ain't no hoarder, I just holding on to it, you know, till I can get top dollar for it. But how I make money now is my eBay. Recycling. Now the recycling has, you know, I was doing a lot of it. Well, when we moved up here, I was doing tons of it. And, you know, man, I was making, you know, a few $1,000s a month at the recyclers. But man, they were only 20 minutes away from where I was at. And then we got up here, and the metal prices took a huge dive and everything. And one of the times I sent Kevin D down, because he'd take a load of metal with him because he had a girlfriend down in the flatlands. And then I'd send a load of scrap with him. He'd go down, you know, and be able to pay for his gas, you know, buy the gal and him lunch. And then I'd get, you know, a little bit too for him for giving him the stuff. But then it got to where, man, he got back the one time and he's all, heck, Dad, that hardly paid for the gas, you know. So then I was like, oh, man. So I stopped doing that in the market. You know, I don't remember what year it was, man, but it was terrible, man. It was down like $30 a ton or something like that, maybe even less. So the scrapping, Scrapping, man, is just like any other market, which now, it's up with the wars, everything should be going sky high. Copper and aluminum's higher than maybe I've ever seen ever. So now I haven't actually scrapped or been to the scrap yard probably in, oh man, at least BS, before stroke. I haven't been in the last, 3 years, because it was 3 years ago, the 5th, or I think it was 3 years ago, March 5th is when I had a stroke. So I haven't been since before that, and I've got, man, I don't even know how much, probably 2 55-gallon barrels of copper maybe, and then aluminum, man, I don't even know. At least a truckload, maybe a couple of them, of aluminum, and then not talk about stainless and all that too. So scrapping, selling my junk on eBay, and then, private sales, and I haven't done it in the last couple of years, but I usually set up 2 or 3 times a year in different places, like flea markets and antique show or flea markets and yard sales or whatever. Usually I'll set up a couple, 2, 3 times in the season and sell the stuff. So there's that, another way that I make money. Whether I'm doing that this year or not, I don't know. Man, I'd like to. Miss Kitty, man, she's like, no, I don't want to do that no more. I keep talking about opening up another store. She's like, no, Katie Joe. Because if I open up another one, it's going to be called KD's Corner. And Katie Joe's going to run it. So me and Katie Joe might open up a store sooner or later if we can find the right location. I don't want to be, I want it to be out in the county somewhere. So anyway, how do I make a living right now is what we're trying to get at. Remember? Right now it would be scrapping, which I've got quite a bit of money. Selling stuff locally or person to person. Selling my junk. eBay. Selling stuff eBay. Then I sell on a couple of 2, 3 different platforms. I don't sell a ton of stuff on there. Just out of the blue, I'll sell something on there. And then I need to get back to selling on whatnot. I was actually doing the auctions on whatnot. So all that, and then YouTube money. Making a little bit for doing these videos. And I think that trying to think if there's any more incomes that I make. I don't know, there might be a couple little things that I can't think of. The knives, I stopped making the knives. One of the reasons is I just got burnt out on them, man. After 5 or 6 years of making knives, it turned into a job. I even had a company approach me one time about packaging for me, putting them in fancy packages and stuff. And then all they were going to do was cut in on my profit. So I didn't do that. But, and at the time, man, I was so burnt out on, it's just making the same stuff over and over again, man. The forging stuff, I like just making whatever the heck I want to make. So and I'll end up doing it again. But, man, I have people all the time, you still making knives? You still doing that? Man, if you do, I'd like you to do this for me and stuff, man. I appreciate it, but if and when, I'd say when more than if, when I do knives, then I'll show them on here, and then I'll put them on eBay and start them off and just auction them off, and whatever they go for, they go for. Because, man, never again, man. that 1 year I took orders for knives. Might have done it for 2 years in a row. And it was almost Thanksgiving, man, I don't even remember. And I was selling these knives, this knife, I think it was a set of 6. And I had I had 13 orders or something. I can't remember all the numbers, but 13 orders for these sets, which was pretty decent money. I can't remember what I was selling them for, but it was probably too dang cheap, but it was pretty good money for me. But And I had, I think, 13 orders by Thanksgiving that had to be done by, you know, or they wanted them before Christmas, so they needed to be done a week before Christmas. Man, I was like, oh, dude, this is turning into a dang job, man. I can't do this anymore. So that, if that explains any of it, if I answered any of your questions, and if not, man, thanks for letting me reminisce, man. That was pretty cool. And I could go on for days, but this video is probably pretty long and may have turned into 2 videos. So, who the heck knows? Good Lord willing. And them creeks don't rise. We'll be back again tomorrow. See ya.